Riley Keough owns Graceland. Riley Keough controls the trust that holds what's left of Elvis Presley's fortune. She didn't get there by simple bloodline. She got there after a will got challenged, a fraud scheme tried to steal the house out from under her, and her own grandmother sued to stop her. So let's start where the money actually landed. If you walk up to the gates of Graceland today, the person who owns that mansion isn't Elvis. It isn't Priscilla. It's his granddaughter, an actress named Riley Keough, and she got there through a fight nobody saw coming. A Los Angeles judge officially approved Riley Keough, Lisa Marie's eldest child and Elvis Presley's granddaughter, to become the sole heir of her late mother's estate, a ruling that came after a legal dispute that began shortly after Lisa Marie's death in January 2023 at age 54. That approval meant Keough was set to become the owner of Graceland, the Memphis home Lisa Marie inherited upon Elvis's death in 1977. Here's the part that makes this a real story and not just a paperwork transfer. 3 weeks after Lisa Marie died, her mother, Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife, filed court documents, raising doubts about a 2016 amendment to the trust, an amendment that had installed Keough and her half-sisters as heirs, while cutting Priscilla out entirely as a co-trustee, alongside Riley's brother, Benjamin Keough, who had died by suicide in 2020 at age 27. Think about what that means. Elvis's ex-wife, the woman who spent years rebuilding his business empire from near ruin, was suddenly fighting her own granddaughter over who gets to run what's left of it. And she was doing it 3 weeks after burying her daughter. The dispute centered on the Promenade Trust, the legal vehicle Elvis's estate had become. According to court papers, Priscilla challenged the 2016 amendment to that trust, an amendment that removed her and the family's longtime business manager, Barry Siegel, as trustees, replacing them with Lisa Marie's 2 oldest kids in the event of her death, Riley and Benjamin, even though Benjamin had already passed away 3 years earlier, meaning the entire weight of that clause now rested on Riley alone. According to the court filing, Priscilla's lawyers argued the amendment was invalid because she says she was never notified of the change while her daughter was alive. The document surfaced only after Lisa Marie's death, and attorneys said Priscilla was never delivered the purported amendment during Lisa Marie's lifetime. That's the hook. Riley wasn't handed Graceland. She had to survive a challenge from her own grandmother to keep it. For months, this played out as a genuine standoff. The kind of story that gets messier the longer reporters dig, because everyone involved kept insisting, publicly, that there was no fight at all. Priscilla told the press her petition had been misconstrued as a fight over the trust, that it was never her intent to attack her granddaughter, and that the law firm behind the original filing had since been terminated, according to her own June 2023 declaration. She said she'd only filed to resolve uncertainty around how the trust should be interpreted. But behind the scenes, this was a real negotiation over real money, and it took 6 months to close. Riley filed her own petition asking the court to name her sole trustee, and on the very same day, Priscilla filed a declaration of support, a sign the two sides had already cut a deal outside the courtroom, according to documents obtained by NBC News. By August, a judge signed off. The appointment was approved during a hearing before Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Lynn Healy Scaduto, and it made Keough, then 34 years old, real name Danielle Riley Keough, the sole trustee of her mother's estate, with Graceland included. According to Deadline's court reporting, Priscilla, as part of the arrangement, would serve as a special advisor to the trust and collect a monthly payment for the role. And she'd also retain the right to be buried at Graceland alongside Elvis, according to the same filing. So that's the headline fact. Riley Keough runs the Elvis Presley estate today. She's the trustee. She owns the house. She controls what's left of the intellectual property. But to understand why that outcome actually matters, why a granddaughter ended up holding the keys instead of a widow or a daughter's siblings, you have to go back to the actual moment Elvis died, because the fortune Riley inherited today looks nothing like the fortune he left behind. It was nearly gone once already. And the reason it wasn't gone for good is the same reason this family kept fighting over it 50 years later. Somebody had already proven Graceland could be worth more than anyone thought. That somebody was Priscilla. And understanding what she built is the only way to understand what Riley is now fighting to protect. When Elvis died in August 1977, he did not leave behind a media empire. He left behind a mansion, some cars, and a business that was already bleeding money. At the time of his death, his estate was worth about $5 million, roughly $25.6 million in today's dollars. A real sum, but nowhere close to the hundreds of millions people assume when they hear his name today. Elvis's only child, Lisa Marie, was 9 years old. She didn't run anything, she couldn't. Legally, the estate went into trust, and functionally, it fell to her mother, Priscilla, to figure out what to do with a mansion nobody had a plan for. This is the moment that decides everything that comes after. Priscilla could have sold Graceland. Plenty of people expected her to. Instead, she made a bet that the house itself, the actual physical building where Elvis lived and died, was worth more open to the public than closed to it. She turned Graceland into a tourist attraction, and it worked. Priscilla resurrected the business by making Graceland a tourist site that has raked in about $15 million annually since it opened to the public in 1982. That single decision is the reason there was anything left to fight over decades later. Without it, Graceland is a house Lisa Marie inherits, maintains, and eventually sells or lets fall apart. With it, Graceland becomes a business. Deeds, trademarks, licensing, tour revenue, a name that keeps generating cash whether or not any Presley writes another song. By the time Lisa Marie turned 25 in 1993 and legally inherited the estate outright, its value had climbed enormously. The estate had fluctuated, but sat around $120 million by then, according to Parade's reporting on the estate's history. Lisa Marie didn't build that number. Priscilla did. Over 16 years of running a company most people forget she ever controlled. And that detail matters for the rest of this story, because it explains why Priscilla never fully let go, and why, decades later, she'd still see herself as the person with the strongest claim to have a say in how the estate operated, even after legal ownership had moved past her twice. In 1993, when Lisa Marie took over, she executed a living trust, a legal structure meant to protect the assets and control exactly how they'd be distributed after her own death, a decision described by legal experts as a standard estate protection mechanism. That single piece of paperwork drafted in 1993 is the same trust that would end up at the center of a courtroom fight 30 years later. Everything downstream, Priscilla's challenge, Riley's appointment, the settlement, traces back to the specific language in that 1993 document and a 2016 amendment tacked onto it. But here's where the story turns, and where a huge chunk of that inherited fortune actually vanished. In 2005, Lisa Marie sold the majority of Elvis Presley Enterprises, the company that controlled the commercial rights to her father's name, image, and Graceland's business operations, keeping only a 15% stake for herself. That deal cashed her out of most of the upside from Elvis's commercial legacy in exchange for a lump sum, and it's a decision she would later regret in the worst possible way, because what she did with that money nearly wiped her out entirely. Lisa Marie sued her former business manager, accusing him of squandering her $100 million fortune through negligence and mismanagement, while her ex-manager countersued her for unpaid fees and blamed her own lavish spending for the financial collapse. By the time she died in January 2023, Lisa Marie herself had acknowledged she had very little or nothing left of her original inheritance from her father. The one asset she still fully owned, outright, was Graceland itself and some of Elvis's personal effects, plus that 15% stake in the intellectual property rights. That's the twist most people miss. By the time Lisa Marie died, the cash was largely gone. What she actually had left to pass down wasn't $100 million sitting in an account. It was a physical house that had become a tourism business and a minority slice of a media rights company. Everything Riley eventually inherited traces back to those two specific assets. Not some sprawling Presley cash fortune, but a house and a licensing stake, both of which only had value because Priscilla had spent 16 years building and operating business out of a dead man's home. So when Lisa Marie died suddenly in January 2023, what was actually at stake wasn't some enormous liquid fortune. It was control over a specific, complicated, still profitable operation. And that's exactly why the fight over her will got so ugly so fast. The 2016 amendment that named Riley and her late brother as heirs wasn't just a sentimental family decision. It was a decision about who would run Graceland's business going forward. And that's the fight we need to walk through next. Because it's the moment the entire modern-day ownership of Elvis's legacy actually got decided. Lisa Marie Presley died on a Thursday in January 2023 after suffering cardiac arrest at her Los Angeles home. She was 54. An autopsy later attributed her death to adhesions, scar tissue that developed after bariatric surgery years earlier, a known long-term complication of that type of surgery. She'd been hospitalized after the cardiac event and never recovered. Almost immediately, the estate question exploded. Under the 1993 trust, Lisa Marie had originally named her mother and longtime business manager Barry Siegel as co-trustees. But a document dated March 2016, purportedly an amendment to that trust, removed both of them and replaced them with Lisa Marie's two oldest children, Riley and Benjamin Keogh, according to the filing that surfaced after her death. Benjamin had died by suicide in 2020, which meant the entire trusteeship, on paper, now belonged to Riley alone. Weeks after burying her daughter, Priscilla went to court. Her attorney filed a petition in Los Angeles County Superior Court in late January, seeking to disprove the 2016 modification and asking the judge to declare it invalid, arguing that the change would give Riley Keogh control of the trust and, in effect, Elvis Presley's entire estate. The core argument was procedural but consequential. Priscilla's lawyers said she was never notified of the amendment while Lisa Marie was alive, and that raised doubts about whether it was ever properly executed at all. For a few months, this looked like it could turn into the ugliest estate fight in music history. A grandmother against a granddaughter, both grieving the same woman, fighting over a mansion and a media rights stake that only existed because of decisions made decades earlier. Then, in the spring, something shifted. Riley filed her own petition in June, asking the court to formally name her sole trustee based on a settlement the two sides had quietly reached. On that same day, Priscilla filed a declaration walking back the public framing of her original challenge, saying her petition had been misconstrued as a fight and insisting it was never her intent to attack Lisa Marie's wishes. The terms, once they became public, showed exactly what each side walked away with. Priscilla would receive a one-time payment, reported at $1 million, in exchange for formally resigning as trustee of Lisa Marie's irrevocable trust, plus reimbursement of up to $400,000 in her legal fees. She would also collect an annual payment, reported around $100,000, for serving as a special advisor to the Promenade Trust going forward. And she secured the right to be buried in the meditation garden at Graceland, as close to Elvis as possible without disturbing any existing gravesite, under the final written agreement obtained by Rolling Stone. The rest of the trust split a specific way. Lisa Marie's half-brother Navarone Garibaldi, her son from Priscilla's later relationship, unrelated to Elvis by blood, was set to receive a 1/9 share of a life insurance trust, while Riley and her teenage half-sisters, Harper and Finley Lockwood, would split the remaining 8/9. Riley would also oversee her younger sister's individual sub-trusts until they came of age. And notably, she agreed to do it without charging a trustee fee, which her attorney pointed out meant more money stayed with the family instead of going to professional trustee costs. A Los Angeles Superior Court judge approved the arrangement in August 2023, formally naming Keogh sole trustee, and signed off on the remaining financial details that October. Outside the courthouse, Priscilla's attorney told reporters the families were happy, unified, and excited for the future. The kind of quote lawyers give when a bitter fight has just quietly ended in cash. So here's where the ownership question actually lands in hard terms. Riley Keough became the sole trustee and sole beneficiary named in her mother's will. She owns Graceland outright. She controls the family's remaining 15% stake in Elvis Presley Enterprises' intellectual property rights, a slice believed to be worth tens of millions of dollars. Priscilla, despite decades spent building the business that made any of this valuable in the first place, walked away with a fixed payment, an advisory title, and a burial plot. That should have been the end of it. A messy family dispute settled with money, everyone publicly declaring peace. But less than a year later, a completely different threat emerged. One that had nothing to do with family and everything to do with a stranger who'd figured out exactly how vulnerable a settled estate can be. Someone was about to try to steal Graceland outright, using nothing but forged paperwork and a fake company name. And the way Riley responded to that threat is the clearest evidence of what she'd actually become by that point. Not just an heir, but the person now legally responsible for defending everything Priscilla built and Lisa Marie almost lost. In May 2024, a public notice appeared announcing that Graceland, the actual mansion, the actual tourist attraction, the actual physical asset Riley Keough had just spent a year fighting her grandmother to secure, was going up for foreclosure auction. The notice claimed that the Promenade Trust, the entity controlling Graceland, owed $3.8 million after failing to repay a loan taken out back in 2018. The lender was a company called Nauceny Investments and Private Lending, which claimed Lisa Marie Presley had personally borrowed the money and put Graceland up as collateral, never repaying it before her death. There was one enormous problem with that story. None of it was true. Riley Keough, now the sole heir and the person legally responsible for the property, sued to block the auction, alleging fraud and arguing that Nauceny Investments didn't actually exist as any kind of legitimate lender and had no real claim to the property at all. The centerpiece of her legal challenge was a notary. The foreclosure paperwork listed a Florida notary named Kimberly Philbrick as having certified Lisa Marie's signature on the loan documents. Philbrick said she had never met Lisa Marie Presley and had never notarized anything for her in her life, an affidavit that directly undercut the authenticity of the entire loan claim. A Shelby County judge halted the sale at the last possible moment, finding that Nauceny's documents had likely been forged and that the estate could very plausibly prove the whole thing was fraudulent. Almost as soon as the injunction landed, Nauceny dropped its claims entirely and vanished. That should have been suspicious enough on its own. A company that manufactures a $3.8 million claim against one of the most famous estates in America, then disappears the moment a judge actually looks closely. Court documents later revealed the company had even offered to settle the fabricated debt for $2.85 million, a reduced payout from the original claimed amount, which suggested the entire operation may never have been designed to actually win a foreclosure, just to extract a quiet payoff before anyone checked the paperwork. The unraveling took months, but federal investigators eventually built a full case. In August 2024, on the 47th anniversary of Elvis's death, a 53-year-old Missouri woman named Lisa Janine Findley was arrested on federal charges tied to the scheme, according to the Department of Justice's own announcement. Findley had operated under a rotating cast of aliases: Lisa Holden, Lisa Howell, Gregory Nauceny, Kurt Nauceny, and prosecutors said she had personally posed as multiple different people connected to the fictitious lending company in order to make the scheme look real. She was charged with mail fraud and aggravated identity theft, and prosecutors laid out exactly how she'd built the fraud, forging both Lisa Marie's signature and the notary's certification to manufacture a loan that never existed, then using those forged documents to try to force Graceland onto the auction block. She eventually pleaded guilty, admitting in her plea agreement that the government's case against her was true and accurate, and that if the case had gone to trial, prosecutors would have proven her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. A federal judge sentenced her to 57 months in prison, plus 3 years of supervised probation, telling her directly at sentencing that the scheme had been brazen. An assessment the judge delivered on the record in the Memphis courthouse. Strip away the aliases and the theatrics. And what actually happened is this. Within 18 months of finally securing legal ownership of Graceland, Riley Keough had to personally sue to stop a stranger from stealing it using forged paperwork bearing her dead mother's signature. She won. The house stayed hers. But the episode revealed something important about what she'd actually taken on. This wasn't a symbolic inheritance. It was a real, valuable, legally exposed asset that required active defense. And Riley was now the only person standing between it and anyone clever enough to try to take it. That should have been the last crisis. It wasn't, because just as the fraud case wound down, an entirely different legal threat emerged. This time aimed not at the house, but at the version of events everyone thought had already been settled. Exactly how Lisa Marie died, and exactly who benefited from the timing of it. More than 2 years after the settlement that made Riley Keough sole trustee, and more than a year after federal agents arrested the woman who tried to steal Graceland, a new lawsuit reopened the one wound everyone assumed had healed: the exact circumstances of Lisa Marie's death. In August 2025, two of Priscilla's former business partners, memorabilia dealer Brigitte Cruz and investor Kevin Fialco, filed a $50 million lawsuit against her in Los Angeles Superior Court. And buried inside a breach of contract dispute was an allegation aimed squarely at the day Lisa Marie died. The suit claimed that when Lisa Marie went into cardiac arrest in January 2023, Priscilla pulled the plug within hours of Lisa being admitted to the hospital, and did so before Riley was even able to reach the building. The suit alleged Priscilla ignored her daughter's own written wish, on file in an advance healthcare directive, to have her life prolonged as long as possible within the limits of generally accepted healthcare standards. A document Lisa Marie had personally marked with her initials and 2 exclamation points, an exhibit the plaintiffs attached directly to their amended complaint. The motive the lawsuit alleged was blunt: that Priscilla recognized Lisa Marie's death would end her daughter's ongoing effort to remove her as trustee of the family's life insurance trust, and that acting quickly protected Priscilla's position inside the estate before Riley could formalize the change. Priscilla's attorney, Marty Singer, didn't hedge in his response. He called it one of the most shameful and meritless lawsuits he'd seen in his career, and told reporters that accusing an 80-year-old grieving mother of contributing to her own daughter's death wasn't legal advocacy. It was character assassination. The lawsuit didn't stop at the hospital room. It also alleged Priscilla had concealed a 2005 deal in which she'd already sold the rights to her own name and to the word Graceland to Elvis Presley Enterprises for $6.5 million. Then later claimed she'd simply forgotten the transaction existed while raising money from Cruz and Fialco off the same name and likeness rights. And it claimed Cruz and Fialco were the ones who had actually brokered the 2023 peace deal between Priscilla and Riley. The same settlement that made Riley sole trustee, only for Priscilla to cut them out financially once the deal was done. Here's what mattered most for Riley, though. The allegations were aimed at Priscilla and filed by people who had never had any legal claim to the estate itself. But because they touched Lisa Marie's death and the legitimacy of the very settlement that made Riley sole trustee, the two women who'd already fought once now had a shared reason to stand together publicly. The claims were serious enough and personal enough that Riley and Priscilla issued a joint statement condemning the lawsuit as deeply hurtful and affirming that the family remained united in love and respect. That joint statement tells you almost everything about where this actually landed. Two women who spent 2023 in a courtroom fighting over a trust are now in 2025, standing on the same side of a legal fight neither of them started. Because at this point, protecting the estate and protecting the family's version of events have become the same job. So who actually controls Elvis Presley's fortune right now in 2026? It's Riley Keough. She's the sole trustee of the Promenade Trust. She owns Graceland outright. She controls what remains of the family's 15% stake in Elvis Presley Enterprises, the portion Lisa Marie didn't sell off back in 2005. And every decision about how her grandfather's image, music rights, and mansion get used now runs through her. Priscilla receives her annual advisory payment and holds her place in the meditation garden, but she no longer has any formal control over the trust. Navarone Garibaldi holds his 1/9 subtrust share, unconnected to Elvis by blood, a footnote in a fortune he has no legal claim beyond that fraction. None of it looks like what it looked like in 1977, when a 9-year-old girl inherited a $5 million estate nobody knew what to do with. It doesn't look like 1993 either, when that same daughter, now 25, took over a business worth over $100 million. Built almost entirely by the mother, she'd eventually have to fight from beyond the grave. What's left today is smaller than the myth, more complicated than the headlines, and defended at every turn by people who kept proving, through settlements, through fraud trials, through joint statements issued years apart, that owning a piece of Elvis Presley has never once been simple. Riley Keough got the house. She got the trust. She got the fight that came with both. And for now at least, she's the only person left standing who actually holds it.